Imagine gearing up for a scuba diving trip with your school, surrounded by excited classmates, the ocean calling all of you into its depths with the thrill of adventure. As you and your friends plunge beneath the waves, the quiet serenity envelops you. But then a shadow emerges, a great white shark circling closer. In a heartbeat, it closes in, and there's nowhere to go. This was Tyler's reality on what should have been a thrilling school dive, an experience to remember. But the terror that followed was beyond anything he or anyone could have imagined. It was October 14th, 2018, a day Tyler Calloway had looked forward to for months. At 18, Tyler was fascinated by the ocean and dreamed of a career in marine biology. This scuba diving trip to New Smyrna Beach with his classmates was the highlight of his year. His parents made sure the trip was safe, reassured by Tyler's excitement and the care taken by his instructor, Jace. But the day held secrets that none of them could have predicted. New Smyrna Beach was a place of undeniable charm. Its 17 miles of white sandy shores and renowned surfing spots drew visitors from far and wide. Nestled between the Atlantic Ocean and the Intercoastal Waterway, it attracted ocean enthusiasts, divers, surfers, and beachgoers alike. Tyler was no different, eager to uncover the mysteries beneath the waves. But New Smyrna Beach had a warning. It was the shark bite capital of the world, with encounters more frequent than in many coastal areas. Today, Tyler would unknowingly cross paths with one. That morning, the sky was clear and the water stretched out in calm, endless waves. Tyler and 7 other students boarded the dive boat, excitement sparking between them. But one student couldn't hide their nerves, casting a wary glance at the open sea, worried about the possibility of sharks. Jace McAllister, their instructor, noticed the hesitation and offered a reassuring smile, reminding them that nothing had ever gone wrong before and that they'd stay close together. His steady confidence eased the group's tensions, leaving them ready to dive into what he promised would be a safe and unforgettable experience, a promise that he wouldn't keep. When the boat anchored, everyone suited up, feeling the weight of the gear settled on their shoulders. The first dive was in shallow waters, giving them a chance to adjust their breathing and ease into the ocean's rhythm. Tyler and his best friend Sam were paired together. As they explored, they marveled at the colorful fish and coral around them. The vast blue water teemed with life, and for Tyler it felt like he was right where he belonged. After a while, under Jace's instructions, the group surfaced to prepare for their final descent into deeper waters. This time, the plan was straightforward. They would follow Jace into the depths, where the coral formations became larger and more intricate. One by one, they followed him down. They descended 40 feet, where sunlight filtered through the water, illuminating the coral below. Tyler swam alongside Sam, enchanted by the sights, completely unaware of the lurking danger. A great white shark had been watching them, circling the edge of the group, unseen and patient. Its instincts, sharpened over countless years, guided the predator as it moved closer. It waited for the perfect moment to strike. For Tyler, the ocean was a place of wonder. He had no idea that this day would soon take a chilling turn. After 10 minutes, Tyler and Sam spotted a rocky sea stack, a grand column rising from the seabed. They drifted closer, captivated by its shape and texture, completely unaware that they were moving away from the group and into unfamiliar waters. When they finally turned to rejoin their friends, a silhouette shifted behind the sea stack, barely visible in the dim light. Suddenly, a massive great white shark, 15 feet in length, appeared and glided silently through the water toward them. In the stillness, Tyler locked eyes with the shark, a wave of primal terror washing over him as it drew near. Before he could react, the shark surged forward and sank its teeth into his right arm. Pain coursed through him as he struggled to pull free, his vision blurred as blood clouded the water around him. Sam, wide-eyed and trembling, struck the shark's side in a desperate attempt to help, but his blows were futile against the creature's immense strength. The shark released Tyler but quickly circled back, biting deeper into his shoulder. As Tyler's strength faded, his vision darkened. Just a few feet away, Jace saw the commotion and quickly signaled for the others to ascend. Without hesitation, he surged toward Tyler and Sam, driven by a determination to reach them before it was too late. By the time Jace reached them, the water was thick with blood. The shark, having completed its attack, had retreated into the depths as Jace approached. All that remained was a pool of blood and Tyler's lifeless body, held tightly by a terrified Sam. Jace pulled Tyler closer, gripping the harness securely, and with Sam's help, began the slow, difficult ascent to the surface. Every second felt painfully drawn out as they fought against the ocean's weight, with the surface seeming astonishingly far away. When they finally broke through, the boat crew rushed to pull them aboard, their expression shifting to horror as they saw Tyler's injuries. Jace and the crew worked frantically, pressing gauze against the wounds, trying to keep Tyler conscious. But his breaths grew shallow, his skin pale, his eyes half closed, as he drifted between consciousness and darkness. His friends watched helplessly, some in tears, as the boat sped toward shore. The horror of the day seared into their minds. As Tyler's strength faded, he succumbed to his injuries on the boat. In the weeks that followed, students, friends, and family remembered him as a kind-hearted person known for his adventurous spirit. His sudden passing left a painful void, and those who knew him struggled to make sense of losing someone so full of promise and light. However, he wasn't the only one to face the ocean's wrath. Nearly a decade earlier, in 2014, those same waters off Australia's eastern coast would soon turn a day of joy into horror for young Henry Winslow. Trial Bay, known for its calm, turquoise waters and gentle waves, had always been a safe haven for him and his mother, a place where they could create new memories after the heartbreaking loss of Henry's dad. But that day, the ocean would reveal its darker side, challenging their strength in ways they could never have imagined. It was Wednesday, January 17, 2014, and Trial Bay was lively as ever. The bay where the Macleay River flows into the ocean is a beautiful spot along Australia's east coast, roughly halfway between Brisbane and Sydney. With calm turquoise waters perfect for swimming and gentle waves welcoming beginner surfers, it had become a popular destination. Its rich history added to its allure for tourists, but for Henry Winslow it held special meaning. He had visited this spot for years with his mother, cherishing it as a place to create new memories after a profound loss. Henry, 12 years old, was an only child. His mother adored him, especially after losing her husband in a boating accident years ago. That day had shattered her world, but she clung to Henry, making sure he was always safe. The beach had become a place where they could escape the sadness and start fresh. Henry's love for the ocean never wavered, despite the fact that it had taken his father. When Henry was just 4 years old, he had been on a boat in Sydney Harbor with his dad, George Winslow, a successful businessman. A terrible accident happened when their boat capsized, and although George managed to save Henry, he drowned that day, leaving his family devastated. Ever since then, Henry's mother had been extremely protective of him. She wanted nothing more than to keep him safe, yet she knew he loved the ocean just like his father had. The beach was where Henry felt alive, and his mother allowed him to keep coming back, hoping it would help heal some of the wounds from the past. But this time she couldn't go with him. Instead, Henry was accompanied by the family's servant, a long-trusted caretaker who had been with the Winslows for years. While the idea of a servant may seem old-fashioned, this person had been by their side through thick and thin, and Henry's mother trusted him completely to keep her son safe. But that trust would soon prove to be misplaced. As the sun began to set, Henry laughed and played in the sand, the servant close by. The beach seemed peaceful, but the spot where the Macleay River met the ocean had a slightly murky appearance as the river's current stirred up the sand. Henry, carefree as usual, wandered into the shallow water to wash off his feet. He stood there splashing around without a clue about what was lurking just beneath the surface. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered. A large 9-foot bull shark emerged from the water and clamped down on Henry's leg with terrifying force. In an instant, the boy was dragged off balance and his scream pierced the air. The shark, powerful and relentless, pulled Henry out into deeper water with alarming speed. Panic and pain surged through Henry as he struggled to break free, but the shark's jaws dug in deeper. The servant, hearing Henry's screams, didn't hesitate. He rushed into the water, calling out the boy's name, desperate to reach him. As the shark thrashed and dragged Henry further into the sea, the servant pushed through the shallows, his heart pounding. Just as it seemed Henry was being pulled beyond reach, the servant grabbed hold of his arms. With all his strength, he pulled, refusing to let go despite the chaos around them. The shark, sensing resistance, began to shake violently. For a brief moment, it released Henry, likely trying to reposition its grip. That split second was all the servant needed. He yanked Henry free and struggled to drag him back toward the shore. They stumbled through the water, falling and rising again, as the shark circled back for another strike. Onlookers on the beach had already begun to notice the commotion, and a crowd started to gather. Some shouted in horror, others ran to help. The servant, still carrying Henry, fought to keep moving as the shark's shadow closed in behind them. With every ounce of strength left, he finally pulled Henry out of the water and onto the sand, collapsing beside him. Henry's leg was badly wounded and blood poured from the gaping injury. He was conscious but in shock, his face pale and his body trembling. The people on the beach rushed to help, using whatever they could, shirts, towels, to try to stop the bleeding. They quickly tied makeshift tourniquets around Henry's leg, doing everything possible to slow down the blood loss until help arrived. But the injury was severe. Henry's body had already begun to shut down from the trauma, and he was rushed to Port Macquarie Base Hospital as fast as possible. Despite the doctor's best efforts, the damage was too extensive. Henry's body had gone into shock, and the blood loss was more than he could survive. Tragically, not long after he arrived at the hospital, Henry passed away. When his mother arrived at the hospital, she was faced with the unimaginable. Her only child, the last piece of her world, was gone. In an instant, her life had been torn apart once more. The beach that had once given them both peace and hope now held nothing but heartache. It had taken away the two people she loved most, first her husband and now her son. What was meant to be a day of fun and escape became a tragedy that would forever haunt her. The ocean, which had been a source of healing for so long, had instead delivered a final, crushing blow. While shark attacks in shallow waters are incredibly rare, they can happen under tragic circumstances. Most sharks prefer deeper waters where they can hunt more effectively. However, bull sharks defy this norm. Known for their remarkable adaptability, bull sharks are one of the few species capable of thriving in shallow, brackish waters. Their ability to swim in rivers and estuaries allows them to venture closer to shore, increasing the potential for encounters with unsuspecting swimmers like Henry Winslow. But bull sharks aren't the only predators that unlucky swimmers face lurking in the depths. Thousands of miles away at a beach notorious for hidden dangers, Roy Stoddard and his girlfriend Tamara McAllister were about to encounter another of the ocean's apex hunters, the great white shark, a powerful predator feared for its ability to tear apart and consume its prey. What began as an ordinary day was about to transform into one of the most horrifying and widely documented shark attacks in history. It was a bright, calm Thursday morning on January 26, 1989, when Roy Stoddard and Tamara McAllister prepared for another training session off the coast of Malibu, California. They were a pair of 24-year-old teachers who had met at the school where they both worked in West Malibu. United by a mutual love for adventure, Roy and Tamara spent countless hours exploring nature together. Tamara, ambitious and driven, was preparing for public health work in Kenya as part of her master's degree, while Roy, ever the thrill seeker, pursued an array of outdoor activities from mountain climbing and surfing to scuba diving and kayaking. Together, they found joy in the simplest pursuits: hiking, camping, and more recently, kayaking along Malibu's rugged coastline. Their destination that morning was a familiar one: a 3-mile loop from Latigo Point to Paradise Cove. The two were training for an upcoming triathlon, which meant mornings were often spent paddling the open water, building endurance and mental strength. As they arrived on the shore, they paused, savoring a quiet moment with their coffee and muffins, a pre-training ritual that had become almost second nature. The sea stretched out before them, calm and inviting, seemingly unaware of the darker depths that lay beneath. Just before 9:30 a.m., they pushed their single-man kayaks into the water and began paddling northwards around Latigo Point, following a route that had always been safe until that day. The skies were bright and the wind was light, brushing softly against their faces as they navigated the calm waters. They felt the thrill of freedom as they moved deeper into the sea, unaware that fate had other plans for them. The waters around Latigo Point were familiar territory for Roy and Tamara. They paddled close to shore, just inside the thick kelp beds that lined the coast. For seasoned ocean-goers like Roy, these kelp forests provided a stunning underwater landscape and a natural barrier against larger predators. But today, something felt off. The kelp appeared sparse and less vibrant, and the wind picked up, creating waves that splashed against their kayaks, stinging their eyes with salt. Roy felt a growing unease. The ocean didn't seem as safe as it once had. They pressed on despite the wind's growing intensity, zipping up their windbreakers to shield themselves from the cold. Tamara, less experienced than Roy on the water, found herself drifting off course as the wind pulled her kayak to the side. She struggled to steady herself and Roy paddled back, lashing his kayak to hers to keep them moving in the same direction. This pause gave them a brief respite, the time to exchange a smile and a nod before they continued. Roy took the lead, creating a wake for Tamara to follow, and soon they had Paradise Cove in sight. Their progress, however, was slower than usual, and the waters had become unexpectedly choppy. Without warning, a powerful force struck from below, crashing into their kayaks and throwing both of them into the water. The calm morning had erupted into chaos. Tamara resurfaced first, coughing and disoriented, her mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. A deep, primal fear began to claw at her as she looked around, finding herself alone in the water. She felt a sudden, excruciating tug on her leg and was yanked downward, the cold water swallowing her as something powerful gripped her thigh. Roy, dazed and blinking away the pain from a blow to his head, turned at the sound of Tamara's terrified scream. He glimpsed her momentarily breaking the surface before disappearing, pulled under by an unseen force. In that instant, Roy realized a shark had dragged her down. Heart pounding, he swam toward the red-stained water and grasped her hand, desperate to pull her to safety. But every attempt to flip the kayaks failed. The slippery hulls offered no leverage, and he struggled to hold on to Tamara. Offshore, Margaret Bloom, a resident with a stunning view of the coast, sipped her coffee while gazing out her living room window at the water beyond the kelp beds. She noticed seals scrambling onto a nearby Coast Guard buoy, barking frantically as they tried to escape something lurking beneath the surface. Although Margaret loved watching sea life, an unsettling feeling washed over her, making her realize that something was terribly wrong. Back in the water, Roy clung to Tamara, feeling the ocean's chill mixed with the rising terror of their situation. The shark had struck once, leaving Tamara severely injured, and now it circled nearby, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Roy could sense Tamara slipping away, her strength diminishing under the weight of her wounds. Despite his attempts to reassure her, Roy felt her fading, each moment pulling her closer to the brink. Blood poured from the deep, jagged wound on her thigh, where the shark had severed her femoral artery. A surge of desperation filled him. He knew he had to save her, but time was running out. As he struggled to keep them both afloat, a shadow loomed beneath the surface. The shark had returned, driven by the scent of blood in the water. Before Roy could react, the predator struck again, this time latching onto him with a force that ripped him away from Tamara and pulled him under. Tamara, injured and terrified, could only watch helplessly as the ocean claimed Roy. Despite her own wounds, she fought to stay afloat, but the currents were unforgiving. As the minutes passed, the kayaks drifted aimlessly, their bright colors stark against the calm sea. Margaret, alarmed by the unusual disturbance, grabbed her phone and dialed emergency services, her eyes fixed on the turbulent water below. Though she described the chaos unfolding before her, her concerns were initially met with skepticism. After all, the ocean had always been unpredictable, and it was difficult for the authorities to imagine something sinister occurring in such a familiar spot. However, when Roy and Tamara didn't show up for work the following day, their friends and colleagues began to grow increasingly worried. The couple had a well-known routine, and it was uncharacteristic of them to disappear without a word. As anxiety turned into alarm, they recalled Margaret's report of the strange commotion in the water, prompting them to contact the authorities again and urge a search along the couple's usual route. Upon inspection, the kayaks were discovered floating and overturned, less than 20 miles from their intended path across Santa Monica Bay. Stress fractures marked their hulls, and one kayak had a significant hole in the bow. An engineer analyzing the damage concluded that the force required to inflict such injuries must have come from an object weighing over 2,000 pounds and traveling at least 17 knots, characteristics consistent with a great white shark. Tragically, the following day, the crew of a sailing boat found Tamara's body drifting, carried by the current 30 miles north of Paradise Cove. She was still wearing her life jacket, indicating she had not been swimming during the attack. Deep bite wounds marred her upper thighs, one of which severed her femoral artery, suggesting an assailant at least 5 feet long. Despite extensive searches by the U.S. Coast Guard, no trace of Roy was ever found, leaving their adventurous spirits lost to the ocean's depths. Meanwhile, across the ocean, another scene was unfolding. Far from shore, a young soul paddled into open waters, blissfully unaware of the unseen threat lurking beneath him. When only silence returned, searchers would find chilling traces but no answers, until the ocean revealed one final haunting clue. It was January 12, 2010, when 37-year-old Lloyd Skinner and his girlfriend Deborah found themselves on the shore of False Bay in South Africa. Lloyd had long anticipated this trip after months of grueling work in a mine in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Freshly released from the underground world, he was eager to embrace the warmth of the sun and the freedom of the ocean. This holiday was a chance to unwind before heading to the United Kingdom for his next job, but fate had other plans. Lloyd and his girlfriend Deborah arrived at Fish Hook Beach around midday. The beach, known for its protective bay, stretched about 4,900 feet, with gentle waves inviting swimmers into warm waters that averaged just under 62 degrees Fahrenheit and peaked at 75 in summer. Lifeguards perched above, their watchful eyes scanning the scene to ensure the safety of beachgoers. With such assurance, it seemed like nothing could go wrong, but that assumption would soon be shattered. The morning had promised sunshine, but as they stepped onto the sandy shore, they were met with a chill in the air and an overcast sky. The once inviting waves now appeared gray and unwelcoming. Despite the deteriorating weather, Lloyd's enthusiasm for swimming remained unshaken. Deborah, preferring to sunbathe on the beach, encouraged him to enjoy the water alone. With his belongings safe on the sand, Lloyd made his way into the ocean, his heart light with the thrill of adventure. The water was cool and refreshing against Lloyd's skin as he swam out. He ventured about 300 feet from shore, where the waves rose and fell like gentle hills. Standing with the water up to his chest, he felt at ease, surrounded by a handful of other swimmers. It was a perfect day to immerse himself in the sea, even though he knew that sharks were known to roam these waters. He dismissed the thought, eager to embrace the thrill of swimming. After a while, he began to swim back and forth, relishing the solitude. As he did, the ocean's floor beneath him remained obscured, the water darkened by stirring sand and waves. Little did he know that a formidable predator lurked just below, watching him with hungry eyes. Sharks have captivated human imagination for centuries, and among more than 1,000 species, the great white shark stands out as a fearsome predator. The legendary megalodon, an ancient shark believed to have reached lengths of nearly 65 feet, has vanished from our oceans, yet stories of its immense size and ferocity linger in history. Although only fossilized remains exist, the idea of such a colossal creature stirring in the depths sends shivers down the spine. Little did Lloyd know he was about to confront a living embodiment of that primal fear, a 14-foot great white shark capable of rivaling a small minibus. As Lloyd swam, he suddenly noticed his goggles filling with water, prompting him to stop and readjust them. Just as he secured his goggles, a sudden violent pull yanked him underwater. Confusion and panic surged as he realized a 14-foot great white shark had bitten him. Pain erupted in his lower body and instinct kicked in. He began to kick and thrash, desperately trying to break free. Blood mingled with the salt water, staining the ocean red around him. With a frantic scream, he called for help, his voice lost amid the roar of the waves. On the beach, the scene shifted from calm to chaos. Deborah sat up, her heart racing as she heard the distant cries for aid. Others on the shore noticed too, their heads snapping toward the water. Some rushed to help, while others hesitated, fear taking hold. Meanwhile, a wave of dread washed over Lloyd as he struggled to stay afloat, desperate for assistance. But he had underestimated the distance between himself and safety. Then, without warning, the unexpected happened. The shark struck again. This time, its powerful jaws clamped down on Lloyd's abdomen, and agony engulfed him. He realized he was facing a creature capable of easily overpowering him. The sheer size of the predator was staggering. Its head alone seemed massive, making Lloyd feel like a mere plaything in its grip. The shark continued its assault, shaking Lloyd violently as it claimed him as its next meal. Blood clouded the water, turning the ocean into a scene of horror. For a brief moment, the beast released him, and Lloyd floated to the surface. He gasped for air, his breath coming in shallow fits, and caught glimpses of frantic movements on the shore. There were screams that were faint but filled with panic as people began to grasp the terror unfolding before them. Deborah stood frozen on the beach, paralyzed by fear as she watched Lloyd struggle. Helplessness gripped her heart, knowing he was too far to reach. As Lloyd cast a final, desperate look toward the shore, the shark seized him again, dragging him beneath the surface. Lloyd was officially gone, leaving Deborah devastated as she stood amidst the chaos of panic-stricken beachgoers. In the wake of that horrifying scene, emergency services quickly launched a search for Lloyd, but hope of finding him alive faded fast. Witnesses described the attack, wishing for something to recover for his family, yet the shark had consumed him entirely, leaving no trace. Experts confirmed that a great white shark had likely killed Lloyd, having been spotted hours earlier without any warning. If the beach flag had been raised, perhaps this tragedy could have been avoided. Thank you for joining us for these chilling shark attack stories. They serve as a powerful reminder of the ocean's untamed force and the mysteries it holds. If you're not done watching, our next video awaits. A haunting account of a diver ripped out of his diving suit and consumed before his friend's very eyes. Click the video on your screen to continue this journey into the depths of the unknown.